Welcome to Coast View, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. I always try to start the show out with a quote, and it's one I ran across maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I kind of stored it away. And I was looking forward to my conversation with Adele Lyons today. We'll bring her in just a second. But the quote is pretty simple, and it's a great reminder, actually, of what we should do if we really, really, really care about our local economy. And it's short and sweet, but it's also very powerful. And here's what it says. It takes you to start the trend. Shop small, shop local, eat local, spend local, enjoy local. I can't say that any more clearly. Let me read it again. It takes you listening to this now, to start the trend. Shop small, shop local, eat local, excuse me, spend local, enjoy local. The local economy is based on, in a large part actually, by small business, people who've invested the ranch to be successful. And it's up to the local chambers of commerce all across coastal Mississippi to continue to support the local businesses that make our economy tick. And just a good reminder. So I think sometimes we get away from that. Let me bring my friend Adele, the CEO of the Gulf Coast Chamber, and welcome her back to Coast View. How you doing? Happy New Year to you, Adele.
Happy New Year, Ricky. Good to see you.
Yeah, I was about to choke to death. I don't know what happened there at the
Don't do that.
But no, everything's fine. So yeah, Happy New Year to you. I know it's been a really, really challenging last couple of years, but that quote at the beginning of the show is powerful and it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, mostly shop local gets talked about a lot during the holidays when people do tend to shop more than they would throughout the year. But it's important to do it all year long. When you're looking for Mardi Gras gowns, when you're looking for, just it's prom time, it's, Easter rolls around, just groceries. Sometimes people say, oh, I wish we had a Whole Foods, and they maybe drive over and do some shopping there. For the most part, you can find what you're looking for on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I mean, occasionally you got to look out. And we get that, we understand that. But if people could really just shop in the local area, spend their money locally, it makes the world of difference. That's where we have jobs that are created, tax base. And one of the quotes that I always love, one of the little nuggets of information is, remember who you go to when it's time for your kid's baseball team raffle or, some fundraiser. We look to the local folks. You generally aren't going to get a donation from a big box store, but it's those local folks who we go to over and over and over again and support our community. So let's support them.
Well, you and I have a lot to talk about today. We'll come back to this in a second. Of course, the One Coast Awards is barreling forward. I'm amazed that we're almost to the end of January. I mean, really, truly amazing that we're speeding through 2022 just like we did 2020 and 2021. You got the annual meeting coming up on February 1st. We'll talk a little bit about what's planned for that, and there are other activities that are happening as well. But let's take a look back for just a second. You and I spent a lot of time together over the last couple of years. I had been in this role at Coast View for just, 3 months as the pandemic was coming on us, and there were so many unknowns and so much confusion and so much kind of learn as we go kind of deal. So we shared a lot of how we were approaching this. I was really always incredibly aware and appreciative, actually, of the role the chamber played and sort of as this liaison. And whether you were a member or not, it didn't really matter. At the end of the day, you guys were a clearinghouse for a lot of information for small businesses on federal programs and so many other things that they faced. And I was always incredibly appreciative of the role that you guys played. And then as 2022 came along, we had a good feeling about we never had a good feeling. Let me take that back. But we had a good sense of how to sort of operate in the pandemic, how to keep people safe, or at least to the extent that we know how to keep people safe. And the chamber played a role in continuing to communicate that. You did a lot of remote meetings, and then you had, I was at the first annual meeting back since the pandemic started. That was an amazing event. But 2022 was different than 2021. But here we are once again. We're at a peak of Omicron, and hopefully we'll see this thing, start to dwindle fast. But still a lot of unknowns. As you look back on 2021, what stands out to you?
Well, the fact that I know, speaking for the chamber, and then I guess speaking for everybody else, that we really crammed about a year's worth of events and personal contact activities into about, about 5 or 6 months. For us at the chamber, it's really about networking and connections. And while you can certainly do that virtually, there is nothing like a real handshake or looking somebody in the eye and either making a new acquaintance or seeing an old friend, and from a business standpoint, that's how you do business. So that was really hard. But when things opened up and we tried to have things and events and activities and programs, it was one on top of the other. And that's tiring. It's really tiring, and it's really hard not only on us as a group trying to implement and logistically put on those programs, but for the people attending them. And everybody wanted to come. They just wanted to be together. I mean, you talked about the annual meeting. That was last May, which we would normally do that in February, and we were, we just felt like we had to have that event. People wanted to be together and wanted to make those connections. So, the compression of time, I mean, you're talking about time moving pretty quickly. In some ways, it moved really slow when you were maybe home or quarantined or, not having in-person events. But it really moved fast once things opened up, and the train was moving, and we just had to hang on and hope we were still on the train and hopefully driving it a little bit.
Ashley and I talked last week, and one of the things that we talked about was the incredible stress on businesses today around manpower, that with Omicron and people calling in sick and having to quarantine and all the issues that they're facing as it relates to that. What's your sense of how that's going and what the stress level is currently?
I think it's still there. It's really tough for folks. You're seeing some different restaurants that are maybe closing on some different days, closing early, not offering dinner. Maybe not offering lunch, just depending on when they can get folks into work. It's still very stressful. I think people have been pretty kind, or tried to be very kind and patient, but sometimes it does wear thin. But we're still seeing people that are always constantly help wanted signs, now hiring, looking for folks. And people just don't even know where to turn. I think recently you would have seen Ingalls Shipbuilding just did a ribbon cutting at Edgewater Mall for a job, a job hub location that they've opened there. They're trying to, not just be in Pascagoula, not just people have on, apply online. They're looking for so many people. They went retail, which that's something you would have never really seen from somebody like Ingalls Shipbuilding. But they're trying to go where the people are so they can find employees.
It's truly remarkable the type of innovation that people are willing to sort of do, change the way they do business. And as we talked, as Ashley and I talked as well, and it's kind of been a theme from the very beginning, is that way businesses did business before will probably never be back there again. Restaurants will forever probably do business in a different way. There'll be a lot where there can be remote work. They'll continue to have some aspect of remote work to what they're doing. To what extent do you guys talk about this whole notion of remote work?
A pretty good bit. We like most people have had to here at the chamber ourselves have had to go to some type of hybrid. When people have to be quarantined, but they still feel okay, especially with this most recent variant. It's pretty mild for most folks, so they can work, but we just, we don't want them in the office. Most businesses don't want their folks there, just because you may spread things and spread and the COVID. And so but it's hard to work remotely when you're really team oriented, like we are here at the chamber. We all work together on our big events. People work independently on their smaller events and activities. So you really rely on that team effort. And again, you can be on the phone talking about things, but some of it is physical, where you need help with printing or different aspects like that of an event. And so we need people in house. And I think we work best together as a team. I had
So,
to quarantine for a little bit recently, and I don't like it at all. It's too quiet. I like being around people. I like being with my team because they're what makes the work work.
yeah, yeah, I hear that completely. You're actually located at the Night Center. When we come back, I want to talk about sort of what do you hear? What do you hear from your other nonprofit brethren that are in that building about
Sure.
their current experience as it relates to Omicron? And then we'll shift gears and move away from the pandemic and talk about other chamber news. Here we go. We'll be back after this break with Adele Lyons, the CEO of the Coast Chamber. See you after this. Welcome back to Coast View. We have Adele Lyons from the Coast Chamber with us, and we're just talking about the news at the chamber these days. When we went to break, though, we were talking about the pandemic, and I was actually curious about her nonprofit brethren there at the Night Nonprofit Center. But in case you don't know what the Night Nonprofit Center is, it's one of the great outcomes from Hurricane Katrina. Adele, why don't you talk a little bit more about that Night Center before we talk about what you might hear there these days?
Sure. It's kind of interesting. It's a little full circle for me to have been involved from the standpoint of the Knight Foundation. So after Katrina, so many nonprofits, the chamber, for example, lost every office that we had. And so the facility on Seaway Road was the Grand Casino's corporate office. And there had been the sale and the merger with Harrah's. And so the corporate office space wasn't necessary any longer. And the Grand and Harrah's were very community minded, so they had a lot of folks on nonprofit boards, and just organically, somebody would say, "Hey, y'all need a table? You need a little space? We've got some. Come over to the building." And people just started kind of moving in, almost kind of squatting a little bit, and then we found just more and more nonprofits were just desperately looking for space and meeting space because there was so many gatherings in the community to try for that revival, that renaissance, that rebuild of the community. And you had to have a place to meet, to have those discussions. And it just sort of organically grew. And then when I was with the Knight Foundation, we looked at some other communities, particularly Charlotte, North Carolina, had a nonprofit center that was all focused on children-related nonprofits. And we had a group from the coast went and visited and said, we need this on the coast. Harrah's agreed to the sale. The nonprofits, 4 of us, put in our insurance proceeds and other grant monies that have been raised. So that's the United Way, the Chamber, the Business Council, and the Gulf Coast Community Foundation all came together, pooled our money, and was able to purchase and renovate the facility so that we have shared meeting space, some really large space, some smaller, more intimate board type spaces. And then everybody comes together, and it's just, you can walk up and down the hall and do business with 70 people. I mean, I mentioned those owners, but, now we have Gulf Coast Symphony, Goodwill, the Boys and Girls Club, just a whole host of people that are here. I think it's around 25 or so nonprofits that are located here in the facility. And it's just really a great way for folks to come together and also keep costs down for nonprofits so that their money that we raise or the money that we generate in the community, we can back directly into programs instead of so much into administration, because all the utilities are included, Wi-Fi, just a lot of things are included in the facility. And it makes, I don't have to worry about getting the carpets cleaned. I can worry about my chamber work. And it really gives a focus to those nonprofits.
We were incredibly honored to be a Knight community, and I had the pleasure of being the chairman of the local Knight effort because the Sun Herald was the Knight community. Knight Ritter, the original communities of the Knight brothers, are how we had access to the Knight Foundation. It was interesting because so many of us who were involved in this, you mentioned Charlotte, And Anthony Topazzi, God rest his soul, had an experience somewhere where he kind of understood what that shared space could look like. And then, George Schlegel had seen it somewhere along the way. But we all had our collective experience on that. But I personally had an opportunity to sort of see something like it, not exactly like it. I don't know that anyone did what we did in the way that we did it exactly. But what was interesting is after Katrina, I had an opportunity to visit the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation in Princeton. This is something that Alberto set up, and I spent the day with them, and they did a focus on coastal Mississippi while I was there. And it was interesting because the foundation, the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation, had half of this amazing building. And then the other half, there were some nonprofits or whatever, but there was this huge community space that they shared. And it was grand, and it was amazing. And it was just like a huge public space that they had important meetings involving the community and whatever. And again, it was not exactly this, but it was this whole notion of shared space in a community place where nonprofits could go to meet with the community, such as the space that you guys have there. That it was that's what crystallized it in my mind, and it was great to watch this come together and create this incredible place. And boy, it has been really beneficial. I mean, one of the things that we hope would happen, and you've seen it, because you left the Knight Foundation, you went to work for Habitat for Humanity, and eventually came to the Chamber. That's the point about being full circle in a way, working out of the Knight Nonprofit Center, which you were principally important to help form. But what's cool about it is that one of the things we hoped that would happen is that the nonprofits, just if you go, down the hallway and bump into someone, there would just be a lot of informal sharing, a lot of informal conversation, whatever the challenge might be, we'd be in one place. The other thing, the benefit, is the board members often are board members for multiple organizations. And instead of having to go from one place to the next, they could go to actually meet there and possibly leave one meeting and go to another meeting and never have to leave the building.
Right.
All those things were important. But as it relates to the pandemic, I bet you guys do a lot of sharing as it relates to that. I mean, that one benefit probably has played out, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Even you look back at the pandemic, even, during the oil spill, when there are various programs, when there's some type of crisis, and nonprofits are generally always going to be involved in helping solve that crisis, or at least ease that crisis in the community. You'll see that everybody's got a little bit different piece of the pie. So we may have small business grants where United Way may have access to, food, or, Open Doors Homeless Coalition is here. I mean, right now we get from the Chamber a lot of calls from people looking for rental assistance, and we know where to send them. We know, people walk in a building, we know that Open Doors Homeless Coalition is working on that effort. So we can sort of tag team and not have to turn anybody away, just turn them in a different direction to the agency that could best suit their needs. So really works out well. And then you've got some that really kind of cross over several different ways in the community. Goodwill has their training programs, and so we always have people looking for jobs. That's an option a lot of people don't think about. Are there jobs and that might work for me that I need some on the job training, that Goodwill offers that.
Yeah, so important. So as it relates to Omicron, have you seen Omicron in the building?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. People who are working from home, of course, likely with that shorter period of time that you have to quarantine. It was very obvious during Delta, when people were having to be home for longer periods of time. You would say, where's so-and-so? Gosh, I hadn't seen him in days, up and down the hall that you would normally see. And now, of course, it's less. But yeah, it's all over the place. It's everywhere. The good thing is it seems to be moving fast. So hopefully we can be like some other, countries where, South Africa, where it started, it's over and done with there.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can follow that pattern.
Yeah, I saw where they were government sending out a bunch of tests and free N95 masks. It seems late to me. It's late. I think we're going to peak out before those things even arrive.
You're probably right, but it's better to have them and hang on to them, and might need them some other time.
Yeah, I hear you there for
unfortunately.
sure. But as Dr. Conger has said many times on the show, and I've shared this, that he's an infectious disease doctor. This is what he does. He says that with each variant, it should become more contagious and less deadly. And certainly, this is the experience with Omicron.
Mhm.
COVID-19 has thrown a few little loops at us from time to time. So hopefully we don't have to deal with the unexpected going forward, and that Omicron will peak rapidly. And as we continue to say on the show, we can get back to our economic normal, whatever that is. We've actually done a good job, don't you think, of actually continuing to operate within the realm of Omicron?
I think absolutely. And what I've heard from people is, yes, you're probably going to get it. Please still be careful. While it's mild for most folks, it's not for everybody. But it's kind of time to get back to life as we know it. And that's where people are still they're getting those 5 days over with pretty quickly and getting back to it.
Okay, so we'll start this part of the conversation and then we'll
All right.
finish it on the other side. But the One Coast Awards are so important, and I often say about them is that it's an opportunity to hold the winners. Certainly, it's recognition for the winner, but it's more important actually to hold them up as an example so that others can understand what is it they did to win the One Coast Awards, and can I aspire to do what they have done? And I love the whole notion of holding them up as an example. But Cal's given us sort of the signal that we're getting to the end of this segment. So what we'll do when we come back, we'll talk about the One Coast Awards, talk about why they're important. You've got some key deadlines coming up here pretty soon, and we really want to push for nominations. We want to hear about those people that maybe no one even knows about that are doing incredible things, and they don't really look for recognition, but they'll get the recognition even if they're not looking for it. But more important, they're going to be a good example for others, and that's what we really want to push hard on One Coast Awards about. So when we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Adele Lyons from the Coast Chamber, and we'll talk about the One Coast Awards. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Coast View. I have Adele Lyons, CEO of the Coast Chamber. And before we went to break, we mentioned the One Coast Awards that are coming up and why they're important and how we really want to leave no stone unturned looking for people who would qualify for the two major categories. So why don't we do this, Adele? Why don't you kind of frame it all up for us, and then we'll talk about some of the key deadlines, and then we'll maybe talk about some excellent examples from last year's recipients that just to give people a sense of what we're looking for there.
Yeah, well, of course, you could tell this as easy as I could because, this all started with the Sun Herald and their Community Leader Awards for the top 10 under 40 and the top 10 community leaders. And then, at some point, the chambers got involved and took that over from the Sun Herald, and the Mississippi Gulf Coast Chamber, the Hancock County Chamber, Jackson County Chamber, and Ocean Springs Chambers of Commerce all worked together to put this event on. And the idea is still the same. Let's recognize and, like you said, kind of hold up for recognition and to honor those folks who do give back to the community just every day and have for years. And kind of the cool thing about doing the under 40 is these are young folks that are involved that a lot of kind of more mature leaders in the community may not know as of yet. And then you'll see those under 40 move on, and years later, they're also going to get the top community leader awards. So they've stayed involved in the community. So we opened up the nomination forms on January 18th, just a few days ago. And we have till February 14th to turn that nomination in. Now, what that is it's give us your name, give us the contact person, contact information for the person you want to nominate, and just a quick little paragraph about why. Then the nominee is going to get the application, and they know they're nominated, and then they sort of tell, here's what I've done, and here's what I've been involved in, because where we know people and we see them involved, we don't know all the specific details. So we let the actual nominee tell us that. When those all come back in and we get a stack of them, we get a stacking because it's covering all three coastal counties. And we have one judge from each county that is, we never say who that person is. They get everything, they score everything independently of each other, comes back in, we compile the scores. and the top 10 scores for each category are the folks that are the recipients. And there's a breakfast where they're honored. That's going to be on April the 26th at the Beau Rivage. And a lot of folks in the community love to come to this event. Those folks, we get to say their name. That's when they're officially announced to the community, and really thank them for all they've done and to keep reinvesting into the community. So it's a big event. It's a very coast-wide event, and we logistically handle a lot of things for the event, but it's really something we enjoy working with the other chambers across the coast on as well.
It's a great event, incidentally. I've always enjoyed going because you always get inspiration. And if you look back at this year's list, so many incredible leaders, and I'm looking over the list, and the vast majority of them have been on Coast View. And as I mentioned to you on off the air, a lot of the top outstanding community leaders, I know many of them I've had on the show prior. The ones that I had not had on the show, we certainly either have had them or we've reached out to them. In the top 10 under 40, a few of those I know, but a lot of them I did not know, like Aaron Rossetti and Caleb Olku of Olku Logistics, and then Carrie Paul. A terrific conversation with Carrie, who's done incredible work. She not only has her restaurant, but she also has a social media following that she has. But I mean, it's just, and Julian Rankin. I mean, what a great leader he's been of not just the Walter Anderson Museum, but the outreach that the Walter Anderson Museum has done around community building. I mean, the list goes on and on. What are some good examples that you think about?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You look at somebody like Sandy Comer-East, who works at Gulfport High. People know about the great work, the renovations they did, but Sandy is so key in working with those students, getting them out in the community, at various businesses and various events, so they have real life experiences. I mean, Sandy's a great example of somebody in education. T. McCovey works over at the United Way in Jackson and George County. They've got all United Ways have their work cut out for them, certainly on what they're doing. And T's a very inspirational leader who has been carrying that torch. Luann Pappas, certainly Luann and the stance that she's taken with COVID, and she's done a lot of other work in the community with various nonprofits. Mental health is one of the ones she's worked on. So, just a great example also of a woman who's just taking charge and kind of moving it forward. You mentioned some of the folks there on the under 40. Erin Rossetti worked with our Coast Young Professionals and just really led that organization. And now she's working with Memorial Hospital. It's got her hands full. I mean, absolutely the work they're doing there. So, we just love that we're able to put a spotlight on people that maybe are known in the community, but then others who have just done that silent work kind of behind the scenes. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's good. I had, if I would have certainly drawn out the two that you mentioned, T. McCovey. His work in Jackson County with United Way is really inspiring, and he's just an inspiring dude. He has such positive energy, and what he brings, he has to electrify rooms when he's around. That's just his mindset. And in order to achieve success in life, you have to have a mindset similar to T's. And I couldn't say enough good things about Luann Pappas and her leadership of the Scarlet Pearl and what she's done in the community, and as you pointed out, some tough stances, but it worked out really well for her. And what it sent is a message that Scarlet Pearl is very, very serious about maintaining as healthy an environment as they possibly could in the midst of this pandemic. And she had the support of her owners. It's a unique scenario because they're privately owned company, and she's in a position where she can take these stands, and when she does, to have an ownership group that supports her is really incredible. What's also neat about her leadership is that they continue to do capital investments in their casino while all these things were going on. And she's a friend and someone I have a tremendous amount of respect for. But the list really goes on. Mike Davis has done great work. David Machado, what Machado Patano has done here in coastal Mississippi, the growth story that they tell. I mean, it's truly remarkable. They're not just Mississippi work anymore. They're going way beyond that. And again, the list goes on. Bill Raymond, he's been around for so long, and the work that he's done for historical aspects of Biloxi cannot be, you cannot overstate that. It's so incredibly important. Ann Petrie and the work she's done over in Hancock County.
Right.
I feel like I got to keep going, so I mention everybody's name, but the point is, there's so many great examples. And what I would encourage someone to do, if they know someone who's really made a dynamic contribution to coastal Mississippi, whether through building their business and their business doing amazing work, or their own volunteer work, go to the chamber website and do your homework on some of these people, and do the nomination form. It's not hard. They've really made it super easy. Before, the way it used to be when it was at the Sun Herald, the nominee and the person nominated had to sort of collaborate together to get the nomination in. But now what we're trying to do is put the onus on the nominee, and have the forms pretty easy to fill out. And it's incredibly important. And don't let someone say, I don't need the recognition. I don't want the recognition. Just remember, the key thing we're trying to do here is hold people up as an example, so that they can be an example to others to want to give back to the community. It's those 1,000 points of light that I talk about all the time in coastal Mississippi that makes us so resilient. We have so many people who are willing to give back. So many of them you've never heard of before. And that's what makes this community so special. What other comments would you make about that before we move on?
Well, like I talked about, kind of looking back at the folks who've gotten the under 40 and then move on. And gosh, I didn't know one of those, Jennifer Freyridge, is one who's gotten the top under 40 several years ago. She's with William Carey, and she did a lot of work during COVID of putting backpacks together and bags together to drop off at the hospitals and healthcare facilities, for folks and things that they might need. And so Jennifer, stepped up and moved into the award of community leader. So seeing somebody who has continued to stick it out, not say, hey, I've done my work and I'm going to back out, I'm going to take care of myself now. They're doing both, they're doing all that. So, and then, you look at previous years, you've got folks like, community leaders, Lori West with the Humane Society, Anthony Wilson with Mississippi Power, the work he did on the flag, the state flag, really pushed to help make that happen. And that was something that I just thought would take years and years and years, and it did. But when it was like, we're going to do this, I mean, it moved forward. So to some of those folks, and Carmelita Scott is very involved with the chamber and our diversity council, and some of the things that she's done in the community. I mean, it's just it's always just exciting and fun, and really an honor for us to be able to say, congratulations and thank you, and keep up the good work.
1,000 points of light. So many people across this great community, the collection of communities that make up coastal Mississippi, are giving back to their community, and we can never have enough people who are willing to give back to the community. The more people we can inspire to give back, the more examples we can set for them to give back, the better this community is going to be. When we come back, we're going to talk about the upcoming Coast Chamber annual meeting and some key dates. The Coast, we have a new chairman that's going to be coming in. The Pat Santucci Award. We'll remind you what that is. Will be honored, and then we have one other major chamber event, or not issue, but collaboration that we want to talk about as well. So we'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Coast View. We have Adele Lyons from the Coast Chamber. This is the final segment of Coast View for today. And I just want to share that one of the really cool events that I went to last year was the delayed annual meeting. Usually it's in February. It was in May last year. And man, it was extraordinarily well attended. I still think, people were a little leery about shaking hands, and some people had masks, and, they did what needed to be done to protect themselves, et cetera. But it was great to have people back together again. It was great to see the Pat Santucci Award awarded. Actually, at that particular meeting, was One Coast a separate meeting, or was it done then as well?
It was separate.
Yeah. Okay. So One Coast Awards was also a terrific meeting. So come back to the Coast Chamber annual meeting. What is it you want to accomplish? You've already got nearly 500 people registered. That's incredible.
Yeah, this is always a popular event. It's our biggest gathering of our membership. And certainly if someone's not a member and they just want to kind of come and take a peek and see what the Coast Chamber is all about, because we do talk about our accomplishments from the previous year and what we're looking forward in the future. We passed the gavel officially where Ron Barnes, CEO with Coast Electric, is finished up his year. And now we have Sam Sandos with Hancock Whitney Bank, who's been on our board for a really long time, served as treasurer for a number of years, is moving into that leadership role. And then we're also excited, we'll officially announce, even though I'll say it today, our chair-elect coming for 2023 is Amber Olson, who has both a business and a nonprofit and is really a go-getter in our community. And we always like to try to balance that, where we have some larger companies represented, some smaller companies, some nonprofits represented. And we also give the Pat Santucci the Spirit of the Coast Award. And a little bit of the history on that is that Pat Santucci worked for Bell South, and she was the president of the chamber. And unfortunately, she passed away pretty young. And we changed the name of the award, the Spirit of the Coast Award, in her honor. And it's not something you can nominate anybody for, similar to the One Coast. It's a group of past recipients that nominate the folks, and then there's a committee that makes that selection. And it's always, we try to keep it as quiet and as possible so that nobody knows. The recipient doesn't know. I've been up at that podium, and when we start talking about the recipient or when we announce their name, I see people, they're just floored, they're shocked, they're so humbled to receive the award. Last year's recipient was Angie Juzang with Memorial Hospital, and Angie's done a lot of work in the community around diversity issues, certainly. And so, you got to come on February 1st to see who will be the recipient of this year's Pat Santucci Award, as well as just joining the festivities of celebrating the successes of 2021, and then as we look forward to 2022.
Yeah, I've worked with Ron Barnes in the community for so many years. What a terrific community example he is. And Sam Sandos will be a terrific president. And I'm really excited to hear also that Amber Olson's coming in as the chair-elect. She has a recruiting services company in South Mississippi, and her youngest daughter, Willow, has that terrible disease, MSD, a genetic disease, and she actually founded a national organization called the United MSD Foundation. And her story is incredibly inspiring, and it's amazing that she takes the time to still do things like the chamber in spite of all of her challenges. Again, if you need to get something done, find a busy person to do it, and Amber sort of defines that, doesn't she?
Right, absolutely. We're excited to have her move into that role this year. Kind of, she's on standby, she's on deck, waiting for her turn to come in and learning and watching. She's been involved with the chamber for a long time, and so we're excited about that. Sam, we've already hit the ground running, of course. The role doesn't start at the annual meeting. We've certainly been working on that along the way, but Ron has been terrific. I know Ron from when we were at Southern Miss together and various marketing classes. So it was exciting to work with him as well. Just such a gentleman and such a genuine guy.
Yeah, and he has given so many. I have served on countless boards with him over a bunch of years, and it's just been terrific to get to know him over all those years and to call him a friend. The Chamber Chevron Community Creative Collaborative, what is that?
Well, is that cool or what? We got a call from Chevron, who's one of our members, and they had done a similar program in Jackson County, and basically they are working with a local marketing and advertising agency, and they're offering chamber members, the first 30 that sign up, 5 hours of professional marketing and advertising consultants with some folks, anything from logo design to marketing strategy to social media. It's just their way of giving back to the business community in a very, very constructive way. That's not their expertise, so they said, we'll hire some experts. Any small business, that's a chamber member that wants to sign up for this. We've got 11 people right now, so there's still space. It's not something as the chamber staff, we really have the time or the energy or the expertise to be able to do. So it's so cool when we have these type of collaboratives, especially with larger companies. It just shows their corporate culture and how much they care for the community to be able to give back.
Congratulations to Chevron for creating that, having success in Jackson County and coming back over to Harrison County to do the same program. That's terrific. Anyway, hey, it's been a pleasure, Adele.
Good to see you.
It's been good to see you too. Great to catch up, and Happy New Year to you and your board and the people who are involved in the Coast Chamber. When we when we get back together again soon, hopefully you will have had a successful annual meeting. So have a great day.
Yeah, I hope to see you there.
Okay, I'll be there. We'll see you. We'll see you soon. Take care.
All right.